Coming to you live from the Tino Studios in Minooka, Illinois. I'm your host, Bucky Shanks, and this is Tino Tonight. Welcome everybody to the 2022 season debut of Tino Tonight. First, let's congratulate head coach Scott Babowich and his Penn State Nittany Lions for winning back-to-back national championships. Winning this league once is quite a feat. Winning it back-to-back is just flat-out ridiculous. I'd prefer to not start the 2023 season debut of Tino Tonight by saying congrats on a three-peat. So if everybody could join forces and stop this monster, that would be outstanding. But in all seriousness, job well done. Congrats again, Scott. Just absolutely amazing. In other news, the list of former head coaches has grown by 2. We now have 7 former head coaches in the Tino NCAA history book. Out of Lubbock, Texas Tech has decided to part ways with Matt Drago. After 13 wins in 3 years, the Red Raiders have decided to hit the reset button. Taking over for Texas Tech is Brandon Stump, an up-and-coming coach out of the TNT League. Also, news coming from Tucson, the Arizona Wildcats have parted ways with Jimmy Harmon. The Ghost, as he's known around here, won 11 games in 3 years. We all know that's just not going to get it done. Taking over is Alaska native Kyle Saraki. The Arizona AD was very excited with the new addition. Brandon and Kyle, welcome to Tino NCAA. With the introductions out of the way, let's get to the latest milestones. For the new guys, accumulating some good seasons will get you a feature in this segment right here. We start with 2 of the more impressive coaches in the land, UCLA's Brian Jones and Florida State's Cam Bishop, both getting their 30th career win last week. These are the 7th and 8th coaches to hit the 30-win mark. Iowa State's Steve Niezgoda notched his 10th win versus the top 25, and Oregon State's Vinny Drev hit career win number 20. Next up, we head to South Beach, where Tennessee rolled into town. Led by Chris Jones and Cooper Kupp, the Volunteers did just enough after the Thursday stat changes to come away with the win. Khalil Mack, getting credited with a full sack, and rightfully so, turned out to be the difference. Tennessee won 1140.70 to 1137.75. The 2.95 point win, Bucky, was the 15th closest game in Tino history. And as we all know, it's a short history, but history nonetheless. What do you say we go streaking? The streaks are heating up on both the winning and losing sides. Florida State can tie Tennessee's record for regular season wins in a row at 14 with a win this week over Kansas State. Penn State has won 9 in a row overall. Their last loss came in Week 10 last season against Iowa. After that, as we all know, they went on to win the whole effing thing. On the losing side, the brand new LinkedIn connection is getting dangerously close to Iowa's 17-game losing streak. The Tar Heels have dropped 14 straight, last winning in Week 11 of the 2020 season. The Commodores have dropped 15 straight, last winning in Week 10 of 2020. And that brings us to the top 25. And before we get into the top 25, we're going to be experimenting with new formats and slides this year. Things may look different from time to time. And before we jump into the top 25, as explained previously, the ranks are going to bounce around a bit at the beginning of the season. As we move forward, they will sort themselves out. Beating ranked teams is key, beating top 10 teams is huge, but winning in general is the goal. Losing to unranked teams is disastrous. Losing to ranked teams softens the blow a little bit, and losing to top 10 teams is not the end of the world. Outscoring as many teams as possible is very important, especially if you lose. That being said, as we go through, I'll kind of lay out a little bit for some of the keys in why these teams are ranked and how we got here. So that being said, coming in at number 25, Nebraska 1-1. The Cornhuskers hit the top 25 after putting up over 1,100 points on LSU last week. Number 24, Iowa State 1-1. The Cyclones, as we saw a little bit earlier, got their 10th win versus the top 25 when they beat number 20, Mississippi State. Number 23, Washington State 1-1. The Cougars remain at 23 after losing to number 8, Florida State. A respectable 1,049 points helped as well. Number 22, Oregon State 1-1. The Beavers scored 1,027 in a win over Michigan State. Their loss week 1 was to number 8 South Carolina, which softened the blow. Number 21, Maryland 1-1. The Terrapins beat number 22, Wake Forest week 1 and slid a little after the setback to number 12, Colorado. Number 20, Clemson 1-1. The Tigers suffered a high-scoring loss to number 18, Georgia, and bounced back with a win over Iowa, scoring over 1,100 points. Number 19, Virginia Tech 1-1. The Hokies beat LSU, followed by a high-scoring loss week 2 to number 17, UCLA. Number 18, Florida 2-0. The Gators beat Rutgers, followed by a high-scoring win over NC State. Number 17, Arkansas 1-1. The Razorbacks had a high-scoring win over number 14, Kansas, followed by a loss to number 5, Oklahoma State. Number 16, Georgia Tech 1-1. The Yellow Jackets had a high-scoring win over number 16, Kansas State, before losing in their annual Georgia Bowl to number 6, Georgia. Number 15, Texas 2-0. The Longhorns beat North Carolina, followed by a win over Ohio State. Number 14, USC 1-1. The Trojans beat number 9, Auburn week 1, followed by a close high-scoring loss to number 10, Oklahoma. Number 13, West Virginia 1-1. The Mountaineers had a high-scoring win over number 4, Ohio State, followed by a loss to number 21, Notre Dame. Number 12, Purdue 2-0. The Boilermakers beat Arizona State, followed by a high-scoring win over Kansas. Number 11, Penn State 2-0. The Nittany Lions beat Cal, followed by Vanderbilt. Number 10, Baylor 2-0. The Bears beat number 23, Miami, followed by a win over Alabama. Number 9, UCLA 2-0. The Bruins beat number 19, Iowa State, followed by a win over number 16, Virginia Tech. Number 8, Oregon 2-0. The Ducks beat Alabama, followed by a win over Texas Tech. Number 7, Notre Dame 2-0. The Fighting Irish beat Vanderbilt, followed by a win over number 1, West Virginia. Number 6, Oklahoma State 2-0. The Cowboys beat number 13, Iowa, followed by a win over number 2, Arkansas. The Cowboys got tripped up by a low point total versus Arkansas. Huge game with number 1, Georgia this week. And number 5, Florida State 2-0. The Seminoles beat number 15, Wisconsin, followed by a win over number 23, Washington State. Number 4, Tennessee 2-0. The Volunteers beat Arizona, scored one of the higher week 1 totals. Week 2 beat number 22, Miami, while again scoring a very high number of points, Bucky. Figure it out. Number 3, Colorado 2-0. The Buffaloes beat Nebraska week 1 while scoring the most points on the week. Week 2 beat number 15 Maryland while again scoring high on the points. They face number 7 Notre Dame this week. Number 2 Oklahoma 2-0. The Sooners beat NC State week 1 scoring very high. Week 2 they scored over 1,100 in a win versus number 9 USC. And finally the number 1 team in the land, the Georgia Bulldogs 2-0 have scored well the first 2 weeks while also beating ranked teams. Number 20 Clemson week 1, followed by number 3 Georgia Tech week 2. And this week is no slouch as a huge game with number 6 Oklahoma State. And speaking of that game, they are in this week's Games of the Week heading into week 3. On top of that, we have Colorado and Notre Dame, Oregon and Baylor to round out top 10 matchups. Penn State versus Arkansas, West Virginia versus Nebraska, and USC versus Florida to round out the 6 games this week of ranked teams facing off against one another. And that'll do it for the season debut of Tino tonight. For everybody here at Tino Studios at Buckingham Palace, as always, I'm your host, Bucky Shanks. Good night, everybody.